Welcome to Rising Tides. I'm your host, Shawn Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. We are live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. If you're watching on any of those platforms, LinkedIn specifically, please reshare this episode. We want to have a great conversation today. The more people that we can get up on stage, our plan is to break Riverside. That is the platform that we use to stream. This community started on Clubhouse back in the pandemic. We go every Wednesday, every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. London time, wherever you are in the world. We believe deeply in storytelling, technology, and hospitality. And we have an incredible community that meet in real life. So we meet up at all the big trade shows across the world, specifically lots of them coming up. But today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and restaurants with our expert is somebody that I recently met. I've been following him on Instagram. If you're not following him on Instagram and LinkedIn, please do that. Jesse Stein. Jesse Stein is the co-founder of Hermetic AI, and we're going to have a conversation about artificial intelligence. What do we need to know? What do we need to be scared about? Or what do we need to be excited about? Jesse, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Shawn. Thanks for having me.
High level, give me your elevator, 60 seconds. Who's Jesse Stein and why does he care so much about artificial intelligence in restaurants?
Yeah, so I've been a tech entrepreneur for about 25 years. Maybe some of you are sports fans. I started sportsmemorabilia.com, bought that as a raw domain name in 2006. And with a team of people eminently smarter than me, we grew it into the biggest autograph store on the internet, top 500 internet retailer, and then sold it to Fanatics in 2013. So Michael Rubin have built and sold to other companies as well. I am a bootstrap entrepreneur, so zero outside funding. I have taken on funding only once in 25 years. And yeah, it was very strange because I went to Wharton Business School. I snuck into Wharton Business School, and first month there, I told the academic advisor, I want to declare tech entrepreneurship as a major. This is 1996. And she looked at me and said, "Why didn't you go to Stanford?" And I said, "Well, I'm here now. I was lucky enough to go here and I wouldn't have gotten into Stanford. So here I am." So I've been very, very fortunate to be doing exactly what I love. I do not have the Midas touch. Lots of ups and downs. I don't seem to get any wiser with age. But my new company, which we'll talk about, and this is not about me, right? This is about adding value to your listeners and your viewers. But we'll talk about AI and kind of what we're doing in AI, and then other AI and digital marketing hacks that any hospitality executive can apply to grow their business.
Amazing. Well, give us some context. Tell us about Hermetic AI so everyone knows what you're building. This is a community. We all support each other. So we're all going to connect with you on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on all the platforms. If you guys want to join our Slack channel, we have a Slack channel, group chat on LinkedIn, group chat on Instagram. But more importantly, what are you building and why?
Absolutely. So huge pain point for restaurateurs, hotel owners, and owners of other unique venues is engaging with and chasing down and nurturing inbound private events leads. So we developed an AI agent called Mia, M-I-A. It's a nod to Miami because we're here in Miami. And Mia engages with inbound private events leads within 15 seconds with a human-like, totally personalized text message. And she engages the lead. She answers questions because we upload your knowledge base so she can answer all manner of questions around private events. How wide are your event tables? Capacity, food and beverage minimums, and so forth. She then books a walkthrough with the event coordinator. She can follow up on proposals. She gets a review after the event, and she nurtures the lead long-term. So someone who did a corporate event with you this year, Mia will nurture and try to reactivate for the next year and so forth. And she can keep in touch with thousands and thousands of leads. At the same time, we are now piloting with about 25 restaurant groups, including very large names. And that's what we're doing.
That's super exciting. Well, I gonna have you on another show that we can go deep dive into that. But this community, this show is all about the people that show up every single week. So Mike Stover, please let the community in. We've got 1 hour of time to get into all these questions about AI and restaurants, and we've got some incredible leaders. So thank you guys for being here. Welcome. Why don't you go ahead and kick us off, Mr. Jason Berkowitz? Who are you? What are you building? And what's your questions about artificial intelligence in restaurants?
Jason Markowitz, longtime restaurant operator and partner, founder, Arrow Up Training. We help restaurants level up their team, satisfy compliance, and develop supervisors into leaders. I'm excited from an employee perspective of AI and what's going on, where there's the opportunity to drive the learner journey, drive through standard operating procedures, and basically it's almost like an agent carry through, how people learn, how people want to move through tasks. I'm caught off guard for a quick second moving through because I was watching on YouTube, right? And then carried over and lost right at the point I loved where it cut off. And maybe you said this, but something that really caught me was that idea of following up with the next year, following up. That's right where it cut off to bring into here was they've booked something. So next year you're going to follow up with them to make sure you keep that repeat business. Not to have you repeat yourself per se, but where do you see the future of that going? Because that's great, because that's not only inbound, that's ongoing engagement, that's ongoing, what are different activities? Maybe you came in for a Christmas party or a holiday party, but here are other areas that might be of interest to you that we think we can help you with. Where do you see that going on the agent, on the AI side of it?
Yeah. So the cool thing about, first of all, like just to zoom out for a moment, like this isn't a replacement for humans. The idea here is that humans with AI and restaurants and hotels and other venues with AI will replace those without AI. And this isn't some science fiction prediction. Like, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've never seen technology move so fast. And so, it's like the winners are going to be the ones that lean into the future and lean into AI, and bake a culture of experimentation into their restaurants or their hotels and so forth. And the ones who don't will have to make a bet the company type Hail Mary pass toward the end of their corporate existence. And so I don't say that to be alarmist. I say it because, like, go out and get educated and get the tools, and most importantly, test these things. And the easiest way to test, and Jace, I'll get back to exactly what you asked in a second, but I just wanted to zoom out and hit the kind of broad brushstrokes first. So there's a tool called builtwith.com. And I don't know if any of you have used it. It is phenomenal. I've been using BuiltWith for 15 plus years. I think Sarah's nodding her head because she's probably used it. But BuiltWith will allow you to reverse engineer the technology stacks of all your competitors or the people who you admire most. So let's pretend that you admire the technology stack, the way that Jose Andres Group leans into technology. Let's say, because Chris Desai, who was, an incredible CIO over at Hillstone and essentially built Hillstone with the founder, is at Jose Andres, and he's brilliant. And so they built a great tech stack. Well, you can go to builtwith.com and type in Jose Andres Group, and then you can type in, Bazaar, West Hollywood, and some of their restaurants, and you can see precisely what tools they're using. Everything from CRM to email marketing tools and AI tools as well. And so I really recommend everyone to go to BuiltWith. Trial and error is a slow boat, right? And so you can vastly accelerate your journey with AI by simply seeing the people who were the pioneers, and don't be a pioneer, right? Pioneers end up dead in the dirt with arrows in their back. Everyone knows that. And so with internet and with AI, success leaves clues. And so follow Tao Group, follow Let Us Entertain You, follow these folks that have huge budgets and have gone out and done demos with it doesn't mean that everything they're using is right for you. It might be too pricey. It might not necessarily be right, but I really recommend do the dozen groups who you really admire and competitors who you really admire, and then kind of take the common threads among them. So Jace, with respect to kind of the other things other than, I see that you did a corporate party. I see that the cool thing about Mia, like our AI and any well-built AI, is that they have perfect recall and continuity forever. And so Mia, for example, when we onboard a client, this is crazy. This just gives you perspective. We take all the thousands of emails the event coordinators have ever sent back and forth with guests for the last 2 years. As you can imagine how many emails that is for Tao Downtown, or for, Let Us Entertain You's RPM Italia in Vegas, right? It's thousands of emails. And then Mia absorbs them in seconds and puts them in what's called a vector database, which the LLMs don't have access to. So that's all private data, right? But then Mia can, further to your question, Jason, can send precisely the right message at the right time that is optimized for a conversion rate and say the right thing to the right person. So if the person did a full restaurant buyout year prior, right, they're probably a more qualified lead than someone who dined with the same restaurant twice in the previous year. And then she can also infer, without violating any confidentiality or making the person feel intruded upon, right? Can take every data point, every interaction that guest has ever had, can pull in Resi data, can pull in open table data, and can then craft precisely the right message. And so these are AI agents. And the cool thing is, here's what's going to happen, and what's happening as we speak is Mia, that AI agent, can then collaborate with the AI agent that does demand forecasting and demand planning and decides precisely how many ingredients to order and so on and so forth. And so these AI agents are starting to collaborate, and they will. And the time frame for this is now.
Wow.
And then through the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, probably 3 years, to really get your reps in early on. So, I'm sorry, Jason, it wasn't that as
Well,
in-depth
it was.
answer.
I'm cutting off because I want to leave room for everyone. But a follow up to that awesome follow up. It was great. We'll always appreciate taking the 30,000 foot view and then bringing it back in and bringing it out again. So follow that train of thought. And thank you for Built With. I mean, this is great. I put it up. I'll investigate following that. The follow up question then is, there are companies out there that have sort of touted that be the center API integration for the central point of communication, right? For these different tech stacks that are coming together. And there's always that idea of how much can you fold into one larger unit versus letting people do their subset specific goals. I like training and checklists. I like being a part of that subset goal. I love how clear cogs on here. Matt's focused on how many avocados you need to order and prep. It's a very specific thing because you minimize the noise. If you try to solve everything, you never know where to begin. So now coming back to this idea of, that's an API integration. What you had introduced was agents communicating to each other, which is the next step of it. I understand. How do you see the evolution of these agents communicating, where you're exactly right, where we sent a lead, we booked a party, we're immediately going to know what we need to order in prep. We need to then set a schedule based on that as well, which is going to communicate, whether it be with 7 shifts or whatnot. It's going to communicate with any sort of centralized forecasting, right? All of that type of stuff. Is it an integration? Is there a central PAL that you see in the future, to go back from Space Odyssey, right? Or I'm watching Mission Impossible 1 again to get ready for 2, where there's the central AI of it all. Where do you see that?
Yeah. So the larger companies, first of all, are not going to be the innovators. So the large usual suspect open tables and resis and triple seats and so forth, they're just, it's really, really hard for these companies. It's like moving turning a battleship on a dime. It's just not going to happen. And companies like Matt's and mine are much more of jet skis. And so in terms of integrating the two, and Matt and I have already, I think the light bulbs already went off in the last meeting, is so Mia engages the lead. Mia answers questions. Mia kind of follows the user journey all the way through to the booking. And then our engineers spend about 3 to 5 programming hours integrating the two services, and Mia hands off the baton to ClearCogs that's able to do demand forecasting, and everything becomes seamless. And of course, these are really early days for vertical AI agents, but it is stunning once you see them. For example, like Mia is compressing the time frame from the time the lead comes in to the time the event coordinator schedules the first walkthrough, from 4 to 5 days on average, because we audited 1,000 restaurant funnels, to 23 minutes. And so like you see the disruptive power of what we're building here. And so the message is not to be afraid or overwhelmed. It's to lean in as much as possible. So that's, and in terms of like APIs, well, like, triple seat, for example, 7 rooms, you literally just add Mia as a user on those platforms, and Mia just takes it from there. That is literally the long and short of the integration. I'm sure Matt is similar too. So the cool thing about these agents is they're really easy to integrate, because they have, unlike normal software, agents, right? They have agency. So they can go out and solve problems on their own. But the really powerful ones are the ones that have a really narrow swim lane, like Mia and like what Matt is building. So do not, like the horizontal players, like AI and LLMs don't do well when they're asked to do this task. And by the way, you're going to do demand forecasting. And by the way, you're going to do payment processing. And by the way, you're going to do staff management. And no, it doesn't work that way. And so when you're evaluating these solutions, the more niche they are, the more you should have your thumb up and say yes, because they need to eat, sleep, and breathe one specific workflow.
It's awesome. Good stuff. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Sarah, welcome. It's great to have you back. Thanks for being here. Who
you.
are you? What are you building? And what's your question for Jesse?
Yeah, so I'm a growth strategist. I work with founders in AI and food tech to help them with growth. And I'm the head of growth for Byteberry as well, which is a conversational voice AI and multi-agent system for restaurants specifically. So I got the point you were making with each one having a single function, but I will counter that by saying one of the ways that you can build around that, and the way that we're building around that, is by having a multi-agent system. So if someone calls and starts wanting to order from a menu, for example, the conversation will be on the menu, but each agent functions with a specialized role. And so that allows it to be more efficient, more scalable, more frictionless if you can pass off agent to agent. So it's solving it in a different way. But if you wanted to, for example, ask questions about your order or make reservations, things like that, you can pass it off to a different agent.
100%. I'm with you 100%, Sarah. In fact, Mia, it's one name, but it's like 17 different agents, actually. Yeah. And she does exactly that. Because I'm not going to get into the weeds, but with the prompt engineering, like when you go to ChatGPT, I'm sure, or Gemini or Grok, and you ask it something, a query, that's called a prompt in LLMs, right? And so similarly, when we're building these apps, we're prompting the agent, and it can only take so long of a prompt. Otherwise, it starts to get confused, and I'm sure maybe some of you have heard the word hallucinate with respect to LLMs, and it starts to like say things that aren't true. And so you want to keep, like I was saying before, you want to keep the swim lane very narrow. And exactly what Sarah's saying, like, hand it off from agent to agent. That agent does highly specific things really well.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate you joining. Let's go ahead with Matt. Matt, you made the intro. How did this intro happen? Wait, Jesse, how did Matt meet you? Was it an app? Did you tell me?
I think it was like LinkedIn. And then the crazy thing is we start talking, and Matt went to University of Illinois. This is really quick, but this is crazy. My uncle was a classics professor for 40 years at University of Illinois, and he's a very prominent guy. He won like the equivalent of the Fields Medal in classics. And I'm like, man, my uncle and his family used to, live on 1 Greencroft Lane in Champaign. And Matt's like, man, I grew up there on 6 Greencroft Lane. And so it was really, really cool kind of synchronicity. So that's that's Matt and me.
It's a small world. Two people talking about a middle of nowhere Illinois town, and connecting on AI.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Matt, who are you? What are you building? And what's your contribution to the AI restaurant conversation?
Yeah, Matt Wampler, ClearCogs. We do demand forecasting for restaurants. It's probably a little less sexy than the agent side of the world. We do good old-fashioned machine learning time series forecasting. But I love this conversation. I love how Sarah and Jesse, everyone's got a different perspective on this. It's such a new area, and it's moving so quickly. And there are so many different paths, and everyone's figuring it out in real time. So yeah, this is just a fantastic conversation. Glad to be here.
Well, what's your question for Jesse, or what's your contribution? Let's talk about AI. I mean, our community, Matt. You've been showing up. You started on Clubhouse. We've been doing content. Like, if somebody's listening to Digital Hospitality afterwards or watching live, what can help them understand how important is this conversation about artificial intelligence in restaurants?
So my takeaway, and this is a credit to Jesse, is this is something that should enhance the experience of your customers. It should create more hospitality. The fact that it's 4 to 5 days to get that booking done, and now it's done in 23 minutes, that's 4 or 5 days where somebody's feeling really bad that they're not getting back to their customer and they're not providing that experience. So oftentimes we think of technology as taking away from the hospitality side of the world. The way Jesse's looking at it, and I think the right way to look at it, is how can we create more hospitality by embracing technology?
Yeah. And this is like, at first, event coordinators, needless to say, like as we were pitching this and doing demos, what do you think their first reaction was? Scary. Oh my gosh, is Mia going to take my job, right?
Yeah.
And what they realized, and we kept saying it, but then we had to prove it out by showing them what would happen when Mia started engaging with their leads, is we started getting comments from event coordinators like, oh man, you gave me my Sunday back. Like I would be, macrame to my phone, like looking at it, wondering if leads are going to come in. And see, the thing about those inbound leads, right, is what happens if you don't get back within hours? Well, a competitor will probably get back. And the stats are 80% of the business goes to the first person that responds. And so event coordinators were like, man, you're answering, Mia is answering the 50 questions that I would have to answer 50 times each week. And Mia answers those, and she toils away in the background. She never complains. She's totally on brand, so that I can focus on being the face of the company. I can focus on earning more and driving more revenue to the restaurant. And just like Matt said, on hospitality and the higher value activities. And so AI used correctly does precisely this, and it just tees up more business. And this is like the reason I got into hospitality, because we went through multiple ideal customer personas, multiple ICPs. We went through roofers and pest control. We made 8,000 outbound calls to home services companies. We SaaS software, right? And then we stumbled upon private events and hospitality, and we just felt the pain. It was like post-COVID, labor costs have skyrocketed. We're fighting for every percentage point of margin, operating expenses, and revenue, if we could, like, the force multiplier of decreasing operating expenses and increasing revenue is huge. And then just the hospitality business is freaking awesome. Any way that I can help people, provide other people great experiences and a warm welcome, that's something that I want to be part of. And for me, it's more interesting as I'm here in my mid 50s. So, it's more interesting as I go into my mid 50s and then into my 60s to be involved with an industry like this than it is many others. And so that's, and Mia makes that impact. And again, it's the human working alongside the AI. That's really the message.
It's awesome. Joe Fontana in the house. What's up, Joe?
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for being here. Take 60 seconds. Who are you? What are you building? And what's your question about artificial intelligence?
Yeah, so I'm Joe Fontana. I'm here in Chicago. I'm building our 10th restaurant right now. It's a brand called Fry the Coop. We do chicken sandwiches, fried and beef tallow. And, I really want to, you hear about all these businesses, using AI. And then I've heard this whole, the business in the future, it'll be businesses that use AI and then those businesses that used to be in business. And so we use it slightly now. We use Ovation. We reply, with the AI button. We use ChatGPT to kind of help with some of our marketing materials and just get ideas. But what are some of the crucial things that a restaurant group, brand, even a one-off restaurant should be using in AI right now that I'm not aware of, I guess?
Yeah. So, Joe, were you on the podcast when I talked about Built With?
No.
So yeah, take a look. So take a look at like the first several minutes of the podcast, and this tool Built With, this is worth the price of admission alone. Like Built With is great because it removes all the guesswork. What you can do is reverse engineer the tech stacks and what, like, the people, like maybe in Chicago, you might, admire Lettuce Entertain You, let's say. So you can go to lettuce.com on Built With and see like all the technologies and tools they're using. And then you can pick the ones that might be interesting to your business, and then you can do demos with them. And then what the thing to do is, like, when you find a tool that's interesting, like let's say slang.ai, they work with hospitality. You would go to Google and type in slang.ai g2.com, which is like the big review site for SaaS, for software. And then what you do is just take demos with these people. Take demos, take a look at the reviews for slang.ai and its competitors. Is really important to like play a chess game here, and a careful chess game of choosing the folks that are really good and will take your business to the next level. Because it's a huge waste of time and resources when you like sign a one-year contract, let's say, for a business, and then they sink their hooks into you and it turns out it wasn't the right solution. So like one thing I would say is like the sense of urgency here around AI should be a controlled and strategic sense of urgency and a step. Don't ready, fire, aim on this stuff. You'll be just as worse off as someone who didn't use AI at all. So just take it step by step. Count on me as a resource, guys. So Jesse, Jesse at hermetic.ai. And so any way that I can be a resource for you all, happy to do that. Oh, go to YouTube and just start geeking out on videos that are talking about tools and technologies for hospitality. Take it slow. It doesn't mean pokey, like doesn't mean, it means just, slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? The military saying. So
Are there any books or creators or YouTube channels that I know we have we have a resident on here that is launching an AI show very soon. He broke the news on our last show, but Mr. Matt up there.
Well, and I couldn't ask too many questions. This guy had Jesse coming on. He's already booked.
He's already booked on the show. You got to listen to Matt's show in order to get the real deep work. Any books?
Yeah. Well, like what I look at. So
Yep.
I don't want to get too nerdy on you guys, but Y Combinator is probably the biggest investor now and writing smallish checks to hundreds of AI companies. And they have a podcast where there's like 4 of them that just talk about AI as it relates to business and like how to. It's not specific to hospitality, but boy, it's really really good. Of course, Shawn's LinkedIn is awesome. The IBM does some really great like whiteboard type stuff. So you're like, what is an AI agent on YouTube? Like I'm talking about YouTube right now. So like, what is an AI agent? And then you can see like a 10-minute video where they an IBM engineer in non-technical language maps out like what it is. So those are 2 and 3, including Shawn, really good resources.
Awesome, thank you, Jesse. Richard Liverman, you have anything to educate us with from the other side of the pond?
Oh, many things. Many things. But sadly, I don't have a letter from the king inviting you for a visit, Shawn. But one day.
One day.
One day.
One day. Beautiful.
One day. Hi, I'm Richard, owner of Richard Solutions. I have a mantra of don't be boring, which manifests in consultancy, branding, coaching and mentoring. And it's really interesting. I've was at a session a few weeks ago where they had the MD of Xerox Europe, and he said that in the next 3 years, AI will evolve the speed of technology has the last 15 years. And I think there's this little bit where if you stay still, you're finished. What was really interesting, yesterday I went to a major AI and tech conference in London called Access Innovate, and they had, first time I've ever heard a futurist speak. And it was incredible. They had a futurist from a major European telecoms provider who was talking about, the future of AI. And then they had another person who was talking about ethical AI. And it was really, really interesting sort of hearing their perspectives of, there's almost this thing where large organizations, obviously with the time savings, can start thinking about removing people from organizations. Whereas actually, how can AI, on the flip side of that, help people do a better job? So the idea of the time-saving element, we need to be very careful how we talk about it from that whole ethical side of it. It is a really, really interesting question. How, we need to be careful how finance directors see that. So I've kind of got a couple of questions for you guys to sort of come back at. One is around the idea of, I think that the way that the AI you're talking about sounds fascinating, but for a small operator, how can they use it without that whole idea of overwhelm? Now, one of the people that was talking yesterday was saying they use 16 or 17 different AIs a day. Now, that's fine in a large organization, but we know those smaller restaurant operators are going to really, really struggle with overwhelm. So that's one question. And then the other question, which I think is really important, which is, how is this technology inclusive? Because I think what's really, really interesting is there are so many people in society that, technology can be a struggle, whether it be disabilities or neurodiversity or, neurodivergence. So my questions are, one is, how can it benefit small and medium-sized operators and avoid overwhelm? And how is it inclusive? Because so much technology is not inclusive.
God, if I close my eyes, I don't know if you guys feel this too. Couldn't it be Sacha Baron Cohen precisely? The pitch of your voice, that's a compliment because he's an awesome voice and one of the best, comedians of our
generation. That's
nice. That's
fantastic.
Awesome. Richard, you're definitely not boring with your sweatshirt too. Is the R for Richard or Richard Solutions? Okay, gotcha. I'll take the first one and then leave, if that's okay, and then leave or I'll give my 2 cents on the first one and then leave the second one to the group. Is that cool? Okay. So with respect to like AI and overwhelm and helping the small small operator, I'm pretty simple minded. So I like to do things that are helpful immediately. And so a couple things I recommend. First thing I should say my experience share and the experience share of those that I really respect. Use one AI, use one LLM and stick with it. Because like 1 month ChatGPT will be better, and then another month DeepSeek will be better, and then Grok, and then Gemini, and so on and so forth. They're like, just stick with one, because like ChatGPT, I have ChatGPT on my phone, and if you stick with one, you'll get better and better at using it. And they're app marketplaces. Like now you can access on GPT what are called GPTs, which are like, little mini apps basically. So you think about like the launch of the iPhone, that's starting to happen. And so in terms of overwhelm, like I just stick with one. I'm also Grok, I pay for Grok. I have the Gemini free, but I pay the $200 a month for GPT, because when you pay the $200 a month, GPT will never freeze up on you. You can give it a 1,000-page document or a massive spreadsheet, and it'll crunch it for you. And so that's super, super helpful. Okay, now let's like bring it down to an actionable hack. So something you can do on GPT that is super cool and really useful is you can tell it, okay, and you explain your company, and as detailed as possible. Like the prompt, ideally, this is really interesting. The prompt, what you say, like the instructions that you give it, ideally should be 450 words or more. And what you want to do is you want to like explain your situation in great detail. Okay. And then you want to make sure that, and don't give GPT a bunch of instructions all at once, because it starts to get confused. Yeah, Matt's like nodding his head as well. So like you give it instructions, make sure that it understood it, and then outputs the end result, and then you build from there. Okay. So you can ask GPT, I'm a restaurant in Chicago and I do this and I do that. And you prompt, you say, please give me the 100 people that I should connect with on LinkedIn who have at least 2,000 connections each, who could be useful to my business. Call them micro to macro kind of influencers, right? And GPT will start outputting that. And so what I do is, here's my process exactly. And it's built driving pipeline like crazy for us. And it can be mapped to any business, whether it's a hope, a dream, and a business plan, or a Fortune 500 company, is ask GPT for that list of influencers. Okay. And have it give it to you so we're talking about, what are we talking about? People like Shawn, so podcasters. We're talking about, speakers. We're talking about, journalists. We're talking about, influencers on social media. We're talking about, I don't know, people on the board of the National Restaurant Association. We're talking about competitors as well. Anyone who has, if you're talking about LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is definitely, and Shawn is living proof, so is Matt, is much more of an opportunity than Instagram. I have 93,000 followers on Instagram. I only have 10,000 followers and growing on LinkedIn. I get 10x the pipeline on LinkedIn compared to Instagram. So it has a 100x the impact. So if you're looking for underpriced attention and you're looking for the opportunity where Instagram was 10 years ago, LinkedIn is where it's at. And it's not for not just for recruiting anymore. It's really where people to go make decisions. And so you're early on as well as a creator posting content on LinkedIn. So you ask GPT, Richard, for that list. Then go to Upwork, hire an $8 an hour offshore contractor, okay, in the Philippines or India, somebody to check that list, okay, because it's garbage in, garbage out. So what I do is I generate a list of about 1,500 of these influencers. All right, so you have this spreadsheet, send it offshore and have them go one by one and check it and make sure, yes, they have 2,000 plus followers. Yes, they're in your ICP, your ideal customer persona, like they would be useful to you. And once that's done, you can connect with about 30 of them a day on LinkedIn. And then you just start adding value to those folks. That's a really simple way, Richard, to use GPT like right now. And, and I always think like when I'm building businesses, and this worked for sportsmemorabilia.com, it's worked for a number of businesses, is like, who do my customers trust? Like there's no faster way to build a business than to win over and add value to the people that my ideal customer persona, my prospects.
I agree with you 100%. I think and I agree with you about LinkedIn. I thought the idea of the GPT there was really interesting one, and I'm just in the back of my mind just thinking I have a play with that next week. There's also a little bit of me where I'm just thinking about like the bit of technology we're talking about, and that idea of how does it work for those small, independent, sort of medium-sized operators, and then around, because I look, AI is the future, and if you don't get involved with it now, you're finished. And that was really interesting because that came out of all of the speakers yesterday, from all of the kind of major players in the industry, certainly in the UK, but also, I've heard it multiple times. I'm completely bought into it. I think the question I've kind of got is around, how can those smaller operators really take advantage of it in the restaurant space? And also, how is this sort of the technology that you're developing, and how is it inclusive? Because I think what's really interesting is that the ones that are, I think, are going to, have an even bigger impact. And that's the kind of bit I'm really curious about.
Yeah, so we're using it, and I'll let everyone else chime in on the second piece, but my companies we haven't advertised it on websites or anything like that. My companies have always had, not to sound corny, but like a giving back piece of it. What we're doing, like, for example, we had my last business was a robotic handwriting company where we developed handwriting robots to write notes for real estate agents and home services companies. It was super cool. And then what we did was we gave notes away to folks that had lost the ability to write, whether with disease or in the military or whatnot. And so this one, what we're doing is helping nonprofits engage with and follow up on leads for donations. And that's like a super no-brainer for this technology. So Mia can, just the same as she engages an inbound private event lead for a restaurant, she can engage a lead for a cause that's really cool, non-political, just objectively awesome cause. And then she can manage that lead and then take it all the way to donation, and then actually send an encrypted payment link to do the donation and take it beginning to end. So that's like what we're doing. We don't put it on the website or anything like that, but you asked.
Real quick, jumping in, Jesse. So everything that you had mentioned to Richard in ChatGPT with the prompting, is that in the $200 version? Is that in the $20 version?
20. Yeah, Jace, you can do that right now. It's really cool. But definitely the offshore team piece is really important, because GPT $200 or $20 can hallucinate, and you don't want to go connecting with people that aren't useful to you, And then like also what's really important in this, I know a lot of people on this call know this, but you have to then start, engaging, like liking and commenting on their posts and do not use GPT to do that. And then same with your posts. My LinkedIn posts take me a long time. I don't use I use GPT to like spell check and stuff like that. But what's really important, especially on LinkedIn, I think on any social media, when you're because step one, right, is generating the list. And the step two is verifying the list with offshore. Step three is connecting with those people. Step four is like engaging with their posts and adding value. And step five is like getting into their feed, right? And then step six is getting into their feed with content that is useful to them, and then consistently. And so they're, and so they're starting to engage in it. And here's the mistake I see a lot of people, and I know a lot of people here know this, but a lot of people who post on LinkedIn will post how-to content instead of how-I content. And so you really—
Instead of how what? Say it again.
How I. So this is how I did this. If it's useful to you, awesome. If it's not, that's cool too. And unquestionably, you are an expert in your own life. So, the fact that I had oatmeal with blueberries this morning is true. It's not the truth, it's my truth. And, the moment I say you should have oatmeal and blueberries for breakfast, people tune out like immediately. And like, who am I to say what you should have, for breakfast, or what AI tool you should use, or whatever else. And so when I post stuff, it's just, it's my experience that I hope will be helpful to people. And one of the problems I see is that people will be like, well, I'm posting everything that, Danny Meyer says, like, I'm posting all the same stuff and I'm not getting the engagement or the followers. And it's like, well, you forgot to start and build Shake Shack. You forgot to do that. And they're like, well, I haven't done that much. It's like, well, you probably have, and if you haven't, then go out and do stuff and then talk about it. It's really as simple as that. So it's like this is like do, then tell, give, then get. And so, it's a classic Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Right. What is it? Jab, 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 right hook, right? It's the same thing. And a lot of people forget that. And then that's the way to build trust, especially among millennials who have antennae behind antennae that pick up on when you're trying to say the 5 ways to do this, the 7 ways you should build your social media following. It's like, no, dude, this is how I'm doing it.
Yep.
And if it's cool, if it's useful to you, awesome. If it's not, that's cool too. And I think that people really pick up on and you're ultimately, and by the way, the caveat here is it's got to resonate with your ICP. Like if you're just posting content because your kids like it or your friends, or even worse, your friends are engaging with it, well, that's fine, but just don't expect any pipeline from that. But if you really so that's why like generating that list 100 at a time of the people that you think could, grab a big bullhorn, stand on a tall mountain and yell really loud about your restaurant or your business, that post your content, do like 10 or 20 posts at least 3 times a week and see, are those people engaging? Are they engaged? If not, make adjustments and so forth. So I just wanted to mention that because I don't like it when people like get on podcasts or whatever, and they kind of give me one part of the elephant, and then I'm like, well, how do I take it to the finish line? I want to make it clear that it's super important to make sure you post that how I content versus how to.
That was very tactical. I appreciate it. That was awesome. Good stuff. Let's make sure we try to get to everybody on stage before the top of the hour. Elizabeth Doss, who are you? What are you building? What's your question about AI?
Yeah, sure. My name is Elizabeth Doss. I am a motion graphic designer and a social media consultant, but I love helping brands bring joy back to their social media engagement, especially in the form of animated GIFs. I'm a verified artist with Giphy, gotten to work with Lego and with some other incredible people and businesses along the way. So I harness your thought leadership and your personality and repurpose it across the board. No, I love this conversation. I got really excited at the beginning, Jesse. I have to be honest. My sister has been a event coordinator for about 20 years now. And she's neurodivergent and she loves to sell, and she could sell ice to Eskimos. Like, she is incredible at and making sure that people get what they need for all these things. But emails and the interaction part of this kills her, because I'll go and sit with her and type while she's doing other things for her. So I'm her Mia. So I got really excited to hear about this, because you think about, I don't know the statistics, somebody in the room may know, but a large percentage of people in the hospitality industry are ADHD, or they deal with other mental health issues. I've helped coordinate with the Burnt Chef Project. Scott Turner is on their board, and they work a lot with mental health in hospitality industry. And so I'm seeing Mia as a potential of bridging apart and making it more available. If my sister had a feature like this, she would be able to do more of what she does best, rather than being stuck in the administrative side of things. Now, I have a couple of questions. First question, I saw on LinkedIn, we had a comment from Laura. She was asking, what was the podcast that you mentioned? Was it Y Combinator?
You got it. Yeah, Shawn just said it. Yeah, Y Combinator. I know it's a weird name.
Okay.
The name actually makes sense, but it's Y Combinator. And there is this, just type in like Y Combinator AI agents, and then a Y Combinator AI. And then what you'll see in the thumbnail, like 4 people talking. They usually talk for a half hour, an hour, super accessible, really nice people, experts.
Sweet. And so you answered my first question that I was going to ask, which is how does she learn? Because something that I've come into contact with is a lot of brands don't necessarily have their brand guidelines figured out yet. And even in the catering side of things, there's a lot of things that either get changed, or maybe someone's quoting something that's not true. And so I thought that part was absolutely fascinating. But I guess my question was, especially in the realm that you just got into about posting, because I'm thinking from the social media side of things, is there a way that Mia at some point could be able to give some content back to the restaurants from these thousands of emails that they're going through, of saying, hey, why don't you tell this story? Like, because you, in those emails, they're going back and forth, there are problems being solved, there are other things being solved. And so harnessing how Susie Q Bakery handled this cupcake emergency. And so pulling that kind of information, saying, could you, because the emails may not complete the story. And I'm just wondering if there's a realm where there could be this part where you're giving the storytelling back to the restaurants based off of the interactions that have happened on email, and how could they retell those stories? Anyway, I know that's kind of off topic, but back to you.
No, it's totally on topic. I think it's awesome. And we're already generating massive FAQs to train event coordinators from the emails that they've, and GPT will take 10,000 emails and then create a 250 question FAQ for event coordinators to train up, and also current event coordinators to refer to. And then as far as the stories, yeah, I think that's brilliant to go through those and create even storyboards for short videos that can be created. And yeah, I think that's an awesome idea, Elizabeth.
Very cool. Thank you. Let's get to Ian and Adam. Ian, go ahead, kick us off. Go for it.
Hi, I'm Ian Hawksworth. I'm with EHS Recruiting Company. We recruit top restaurant and hospitality talent focused on Southern California and nationwide. This is a great topic. AI is taking over in our industry as well. It's really been interesting to explore, the ways that it can help recruiters, similar to events in a lot of ways, because a lot of the tools we've been seeing are like taking sourcing and using AI in the sourcing process and putting people through that to get more time in interviews, which is kind of the same thing as the walkthroughs and all that for event folks. So similar tools in that way. And then also the AI note takers afterwards, so that when we can have interviews with our candidates, that you have the note taker and they can help you, consolidate that time and put together summaries and all that. So the ways that they're being put into play are really interesting. I think the one caution that I've seen in the recruiting realm, which I'm sure you've seen competitors in your space, is companies that are claiming to be AI but are still only automation, and the difference between those things. So have you seen that come up at any point, where people are kind of trying to label themselves as AI, but they're really just putting together a string of activities?
Yeah, I saw Richard smile as you said that, like knowingly, and Elizabeth as well. Yeah, there's they're called like bots, right? Or very thinly coded GPTs, basically, which we've had so you want to make sure that the people that are running the company have a history, I think, of building tech companies, important. And then like, how deep is their engineering team? Just for perspective, we've had 7 software engineers for 14 months building Mia, including our technical co-founder who has a master's in machine learning and worked for BlackRock and Morgan Stanley for 5 years in AI. And so this is a real app, and because it really matters. It matters for so many reasons, like data security, for example. You want to make sure that the people you're handing your leads to, or all your most valuable data, have a Chinese wall there and have security protocols in place so it doesn't get out, God forbid. So you really want to make sure that these things are, and if they're venture funded, I'm a bootstrapped entrepreneur, so I don't really, for better or for worse, I really don't raise money. But folks that have gotten money from Y Combinator or other VCs, they've withstood diligence. So there's certainly not, GPT wrappers, as they're called, just GPT with just a thin wrapper around it.
Great. That was a great question, Ian. Adam, are you still with us? You want to get a question in before we let Jesse go? Thanks for the patience.
Hi, can you hear me? Is it working?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, awesome. Massive fan of AI. Really weird that you're on today, because I literally spoke to a client yesterday who used to work for a giant in the UK restaurant group, and they had AI calling, and they had 1,250 calls a day, and that went down to 390. And the AI calling managed to resolve that amount of calls. It's just unbelievable. So, and that they've got like 30, 40 restaurants. I mean, that's big for us over here. And they're super high-end restaurants, and the high-end restaurants, fine dining, are always going to have specific questions. So yeah, it was amazing to see. I think the platforms that are out there are, the other ones are like super expensive. So I'd love to see other platforms more and more coming on and plugging directly into Res and, helping businesses, right? So the other thing that is really interesting is the booking widget, right? The booking widget should be super simple. So you can take the concept of what you've done with Mia, and I don't know if you built the chatbot as well, but having that on the site too and having all that information. So massive fan of AI and love to see more integrations all the way through. I mean, you could do stuff like, I'm envisioning you guys having something like a little app for the reservationist, where they know that someone's coming, pop it up, help that like maitre d' style stuff, which I'd love to see, because it's not there. You go to super high-end hotels, they know when you're coming, they've done the research on who you are, but that maitre d' no longer exists. So is that something that you guys are looking at?
Yes. Adam, thanks. By the way, earlier in the podcast, I don't know what you were doing, but there was some like weird filters. There's some weird filters, and I was tripping out. Were other people too watching Adam? It was like almost a performance art.
So this backdrop. I'm on the iPhone because it's actually dinner time. Oh, sorry, I'm making dinner, right? So I'm out and about. This one, tea time. This one's a bit better. It's not too bad. The other one was a bit psychedelic. So I think as I left the screen, it was like Richard sent me a WhatsApp of like, this is what you look like. So I left, sorry. But I think there's loads of opportunity out there. I think we're building some Res stuff. Oh, look at that. Elizabeth is awesome. Yeah. We're building some stuff as well. So I'll definitely connect with you otherise. Okay. So hi, it'd be really good to, the interesting thing about the AI stuff is that I'm a super early adopter. My Instagram is full of all the cheats and everything else that's coming out. So hospitality is a little bit behind the scenes, as you probably understand. Like, retail are way ahead, but hospo, we're still sort of dragging along. We'll get there in the end, and thank goodness you guys are coming, because there's needs for these sort of tools to make things easier. Like, I literally speak to clients every day about Res, and they are like, oh, we want better reporting, or we want to understand where the person left off, or the system I have in place doesn't really know to tell me how many calls we actually had, because it doesn't give me the info. But I can see we had 1,000 calls, but we didn't have 1,000 calls. It's just that every phone rang. So there's lots of really fragmented tech, especially everywhere, to be fair. So it's exciting to see what you're building. But I can see it in every facet, right, from front of house and back of house.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well,
so,
Jesse, do you have a heart out, Jesse?
What was that?
Do you have a heart out? You good?
Good.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Sweet. Just respect to your time.
Are you guys okay?
We're good. No, we tend to go a little bit over an hour, but I just wanted to make sure if you had to jump off.
Cool. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Sweet.
Super honored to be here.
Sean, it's AI. We've got to go on for at least 3.5 hours. AI can summarize it for you. It's all good.
Well, I'm an avatar anyway, so I can go forever.
The Jesse agent? You're your own agent?
Yeah.
Representative?
No, so Adam, we're integrating with the large platforms over here in the US. It's like, OpenTable and Resi. So Mia can look at all the reservations that you've taken over the last year. And when an inbound lead comes in for a private event, score that lead. Someone who's been to your restaurant and spent, $5,000 over the last 2 years is probably more valuable than someone who's never been. And so that data is super valuable. One thing that's interesting is the large platforms like the two I mentioned are pretty freaked out right now, because think about it. They can get so easily disintermediated. Once a guest, so what Mia's starting to do is reach out by text message to missed phone calls for restaurants. So, even the best restaurants will have lots of missed calls for whatever reason, especially during peak hours. And so Mia will reach out and then all of a sudden disintermediate OpenTable and Resi. Why? When you have a concierge, a VIP concierge who's sending text messages, and all you need to say is, hey, book me a table next Friday for 6 people at 7 p.m. She knows everything about you. She knows all your tastes, all your preferences. You didn't have to call in. You didn't have to go online. You didn't have to do anything. I think OpenTable, Resi, and the rest are seeing the writing on the wall, and they know they're not going to develop it internally. They're great at a lot of things, but these big companies, like I mentioned earlier, they're not great at developing new entrepreneurial ventures. So we're playing.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask one question? Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the most important things that all the marketers that we speak to is tracking, right? So you book a table on OpenTable, it leaves the website, that's gone. There are some people that are able to get good tracking, right? But they don't really do a great job. So they know, so the marketer will know, right, okay, we had 500 clicks to that button, but we only had 50 bookings, and they have no idea. And OpenTable just can't give you the information, nor can Seven, nor can Resi, because it's just left the site, right? So I think something, if you haven't written it in your document, in your selling point, is that tracking piece is an absolute golden. Seriously, that's one of all the marketers we speak to and all the reservation teams we speak to. One of the biggest things they say is how we want to track. How do we track it? What do we spend the money on? And I think that's something that's definitely a big thing in res.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those platforms don't want you to do the attribution modeling. It's called like attribution modeling is in digital marketing. They don't want you to say, oh, I spent $5. I spent $5 per head on this reservation to OpenTable. Like, what did I or I spent this much on a marketing campaign per impression. How much did I get back? And Mia, it's very clear. Like, you spend a certain amount per location per month, which is about $500 per location. So it's a $6,000 annual investment. And then, it's like I got, 27 incremental private events as a result at 40% operating margin. And of course, operating margins on private events are way higher because your fixed costs are are already paid for. And Mia also, so this is something to consider as well. Like any lead, any historical lead you've ever gotten in the past, anyone from OpenTable, Resi that spent over X dollars, like, needs to be hit by Mia. And so Mia's hitting all the historical leads as well, thousands and thousands of these leads. And it's like CRMs are woefully ill-equipped to hit those leads. So just something to keep in mind.
That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and do a tip, takeaway, homework assignment. Richard, kick us off.
A great topic. I think what's fascinating, the tip is you've got to get involved with AI now, or you're not going to have a business. And I go back to where I started. Technology will move in the next 3 years at the speed it has done in the last 15. So it's kind of get on board now. And to Jesse's point, I think it's go experiment, find what's right for you.
That's great. Ian, tip, takeaway, homework assignment.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of great takeaways. Builtwith.com, looking up the reviews of the AIs and all that were great takeaways. So I appreciate those knowledge bombs. And yeah, we're looking forward to getting more involved in the space as well.
Awesome. Adam?
Really, the easiest tip, if you don't have ChatGPT, go download it on your phone right now, have a play with it. Please don't do what my friend does and have separate have one conversation for everything, because he's got the conversation of how to write a marketing campaign, and then underneath that, how long does it take to boil an egg and cook a potato in the oven. So if you do have it, try to have different conversations, and then you can give it memory even in the free version. Strongly recommend not to have one, because even my mum has one. And she uses it. And my sister-in-law, who was unable to write a proper letter to her kid's school, her kid is super clever, but on the spectrum, autistic, and she just couldn't write the words she needed to write to tell the school what she wanted to say. She couldn't get it would just be gibberish. The school would be like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So she actually used ChatGPT for everything, sending letters to her internal business. She's only got a small company, but all the letters to school are put through that, to the point that she had an argument with my wife 3 weeks ago and put the argument on WhatsApp into ChatGPT and asked, "Am I right or is she right?" And ChatGPT, and she replied to the comment saying, "ChatGPT said that I'm right." So yeah, play with it, test it, at least just download it and see the power of it, because it is, if you're not using it, you're falling behind.
That's awesome. Sarah, thank you for being here. What's
Yeah.
your tip, takeaway, homework assignment?
I would say something we talked about at the very beginning, which is right agent for the right job. I think Mia is super strong because it has been trained on such a specific niche, and so it's powerful in that sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Elizabeth?
Yeah, two things. One, it's because I love making how-to posts. And so,
that was a great tip, Jesse. Seriously, for this storytelling community, that was a phenomenal. The way that you reframed it was phenomenal. Yes.
So I'm going to make a how I did this post rather than just a how-to post to make it the story part of that. And the other tip about because I've been trying to research how to write better prompts for AI, and that tip about give it a lot of information, 450 words plus, about the description of all the things before you start asking it to do or maybe ask it to do one task. And I think I've been overwhelming my AI with all my ideas, and it's doing its best to keep up. But if I can get clearer on that, anyway, I thought that was a great tip. So thank you so much.
Elizabeth, please break AI, because that'd be hilarious.
My tip is that I got a recommendation from somebody I respect. It's incredibly smart, but he said The AI Driven Leader. It's a book by Jeff Woods. I don't know, Jesse, are you familiar with Jeff Woods?
No, writing it down.
He actually told me that it was such an important book that I had to order it immediately, read it, and I've been reading it. And it's about strategy. It's not about the tools that you need, but it's about how do you think critically and how do you do better prompts and to use it as a thought leader. So as somebody that you can actually bounce ideas off of and find out your weaknesses, things that you're not looking at from a high level. It's a phenomenal book. He told me I shouldn't share it, but he knows me that I share anything that's good, especially with our community. But Jesse, I really appreciate you taking the time. What's the best way for people to keep in touch with you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Jesse at JESSE at Hermetic, HERMETIC.ai.
Perfect. And if you guys are listening, please join the show. Go to betheshow.media/rising tides. We want you guys to be a part of this conversation. If you have topics that you want the group to discuss, let us know. If you want to host, let us know that as well. We are grateful to this community. Thank you guys all for showing up today. Sarah, Adam, Ian, Richard, Elizabeth, Jesse, and everybody else that joined us. And thank you to Stover and Mike, the producers behind the scenes. We appreciate you guys. Great conversation. We will see you all next week, Wednesday.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Great show, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. All right.
Sweet.
And that's a wrap. Awesome.
Awesome, guys. You guys are a really fun group.
we've been.
You guys do this? It's usually the same motley crew every.
We have an interchange of motley. We have our staples, our regulars, but we have probably, I mean, on our list